Good morning, Istanbul. I was in your lovely city in August, and I must admit I found it a little bit sad. And I'm really looking forward to coming again in May of next year when the Champions League final will be on, when we hope the world will be a much nicer place than it is now. And is this that I want to talk about today? The presentation is how to create brand value and using as Champions League as an example. It's a great example because it's a very strong brand. And it's a good example because the Champions League is going to be in Istanbul next year, and you'll be able to sort of follow it. And if you remember anything from this presentation, it might be a bit more to you. Now, to introduce myself, I'm former marketing director of team marketing, and I worked on the Champions League from the beginning until 2016, when the brand was valued. We employed a company to actually work out how much the brand would be if it was a house or a property. So I started when the brand was not worth very much, and I finished when it was worth a lot. It's one of the strongest brands in the world. It wasn't the biggest, but it was one of the strongest. So I think I've got some very good examples, and I can illustrate the concept of creating brand value with real events and examples and pictures. And hopefully this will be very interesting for you. But actually it's more than interesting. It's because I'm of the belief that brand is one of the most cost-effective spends in business, in commerce. The Champions League logo cost $100, and the brand in 2016 was worth 4.1 billion. Nike, the logo cost $35. Now, the Nike brand is the 15th strongest brand in the world, and it's worth 35 billion. So really, if you get it right, there's no better way to spend your money. When I left team in 2016, I then wrote a book. So having worked on the brand for around 21 years, I then thought and discussed it and wrote about it. So I think I have a very good perspective on this. And I know that the people listening in the audience are from all walks of life. So I hope that these lessons are interesting for entrepreneurs, people who are creating a brand, intrapreneurs, people working in a business that think the brand is important and ought to be stepped up a bit. And also importantly, for any individual who's working on their own personal brand. There's a lot of talk nowadays about personal branding, but that's activity on the social media, digital and stuff like that. This is something different. This is who you are and where you're going, and it's a summary of that. And you need to do that before you can actually talk about yourself and all the different channels this nowadays. Now, the difficulty with talking about brand is that people interpret it in different ways. I've been looking at it for 20 years, and my experience is that, let's say 50% of people think brand is something external. It's the market. And it's captured by this quote by Bezos, which says, your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. These people are really talking about brand image, the result. But to create that brand image, you need to have done something. It's a bit like success or health. You can't just be healthy, you've got to do something to be healthy. So what you need to do is you need to work on your identity, brand identity. So this definition of brand is more what you actually have to do. Now I have an admission, I'm quite old. I did my MBA in the 80s, and I had a brilliant professor who I think defined it in the best possible way, which is a strong brand is product times branding times added value. If you have a product and some design, it probably is a huge amount of value. Design is, to some extent, is a tax. But if the brand speaks, if the design speaks, and it echoes the benefits of the product, then you can create great value, and that's the presentation. So let me explain that a little bit more and use the Champions League as an example. So to create a brand, you obviously need a product. So that's the competition, 32 clubs, and in 2021 they'll be meeting in Istanbul for the final. If you want to create a brand, you need to have a positioning of all the good things you could say about the Champions League. You need to pick one, because you can only illustrate one with design. You can't pick all than one. So, for example, with the Champions League, we could say it's great European football. We could have said it's the great competition that determines the champion club of Europe. Actually, what we always said, it's the best club competition in the world. Right from the beginning in 1954, when it was first the European Cup, and then it became the Champions League. It's got the best clubs, it's got the best teams, probably got the best football, and it's the best club competition in the world. So you need to have a good product. Then with respect to branding, the important thing is you have a sense of the desired image, what it is that you want to do. And with the Champions League, it was the higher image of football. That was the sort of concept behind it. And then we created all the iconic design. Then we had strategy. The strategy is how we went about things. It's, if you like, the journey. And there's a big difference between strategy, tactics, policy, and goals. Strategy is what you're going to do. And they're always quite complicated. So it's very important to have a number of statements, iconic statements that people remember, whether it's a vision, a mission, or a purpose. So if you have that, number 5 and number 4, it really helps with respect to tactics and what you actually do. And if all these 3 things come together, you create brand value. So let's start with the Champions League, and again now and answer the question, how do you create 4.1 billion of brand value? So this is a sketch. On the left is a sketch of the logo. Now, obviously, it's a lovely logo. It didn't cost very much. That's not going to create an awful lot of brand because it's just a sketch. What you need to do is you need to bring that to life. You need to do things. And this is a very iconic thing that the Champions League has, which is the center circle. It's the logo on the pitch. And that was one of the things that was created in '92. Amongst many other things that brought the branding to life and created the value. The problem with branding is that people can copy it, and now everybody's got it. So it probably doesn't add as much value as it could be, because that's the problem with branding. You always have to be one step ahead of everybody. The phrase I use a lot is iconic. One of the things that was done with the television agreement made, or broadcast for TV branding, the sequence. And that's actually something that created a huge amount of value. If you can see here, these are on the left was the first one in '92. Lasted 3 years. We had another one, the orange one. And you could see that over the last 26 years, there's this lovely consistency. So it was always different, but there was always an iconic image, the stars and the trophy and the what we call the ultimate stage. And that created a huge amount of value. And it's very important because branding, the way branding creates value is a little bit like an investment. You put in $10, let's say you get 1 in terms of interest, and you leave that interest, so it compounds. So you get the interest on the original amount and also on the benefit that was created. Okay, so that's one part of the formula. The next thing is product. This is on the left is the value of the Champions League brand in 2013. 4.1 was the value in 2016. So in the space of 3 years, it grew by 300 million. So that's actually another reason, another way to see brand value is created. You basically steer the ship, it's taking a particular direction, you've got to get it going there. But once it's there, it basically creates the value year after year after year. I was also part of the group that created the Europa League brand. And that was worth 0.2 billion. Part of the reason 2013 was only 4 years old, so a little bit different. But even if, let's say, had it been 21 years old, there would have been quite a bit of a difference between, because the products are just different. I always thought that if champions from the Champions League put it on the UEFA Europa and moved the other one around and made swap the names. So in other words, the UEFA Europa League had the Champions League branding, and the Champions League had the UEFA Europa. It probably makes a huge amount of difference because at the end of the day, it's the product. The way you create brand value is you take that product and you make the best of it. So you could see on the left, it's the ultimate stage, this beautiful entertainment arena, which is like the essence of Champions League, and that image said, and that works very well for branding. On the UEFA Europa League, it's about the European journey. And one of the things that's really strong about the UEFA Europa League is the trophy, the same trophy that was made by Gazzaniga Cup. And my humble UEFA Europa League trophy is nicer than the World Cup. So those are the two elements, two of the elements that we're branding in the logo showcase the UEFA Cup very nicely. The third element is the strategy. Now, this was on the right. You see an article in Sport Business International about the valuation of the brand of 2013, and Interbrand were quoted, and they said this. Now, Interbrand are the brand valuers, they value all the brands in the world, and they said this: internally, the brand is very well communicated by UEFA and team. It's one of the best cases you will see. When we ask stakeholders what the brand stands for, their answers were very close to the brand essence. And that's really important. And what do they mean by that? They meant this statement. This is one of the books I used to produce. The essence on the top right. The best of the best on the ultimate stage. What the brand stands for. You need some words that people understand and have a sense of what the brand is all about. In addition to the essence, we have the vision on the left to create the ultimate stage for Europe's club championship, an ambition which is fans the best club competition in the world. And all these things together ensure that people are on the same page. They take the product, they take the branding, and they do things, experiences, and act in such a way that consistently that creates brand value. So this is this page is something that I did on the with respect to a book that everybody used to get. When I went to my company team, we all had this little bit of plastic, this sign, if you like, that everyone had on their desk. And this is actually very important in creating brand value. Basically, this was team's mission. We are an independent marketing company. We operate within the framework provided by the governing body. We apply a creative approach to deliver the optimum marketing result. Now, that was very important. That's like a creative approach. Everything we wanted to do about the competition was that new and the best that it could be, because if you did things that were new and the best that they could be, you were always clearly going to generate a premium price for the product you were selling. And the last thing, the important thing is we benefits both the sports and the commercial partners. So the idea behind team was that if you have different groups of people involved in something and they have mutual benefit, then you can be very successful. The idea of the whole being worth more than the sum of the parts. And and the whole being the sum of the parts. And what makes the whole the sum of the parts? It's basically branding. It's branding that makes groups of people feel part of one thing. So, bottom line, the answer to the question of how to create a brand value is to make sure product and strategy are aligned. So I have another quick example, which is Airbnb, and this is actually a little bit more relevant to something I did that was done, let's say, 20 years ago, 1992, and that's the valuation of Airbnb. Yes, last week it was they basically was launched in the market, and the price doubled to 100 billion. So that's the total value of the organization Airbnb. The brand value of 100 million, it hasn't been audited because it's not a public company, but I guess around a billion. Let's say it's more or less the same as the Champions League. So it's very significant. And surprise, surprise, the growth of the brand mirrors some of the growth of the actual organization. So I don't work for Airbnb, but I think this is interesting. This is the number of guests staying on New Year's Eve over the years. So in 2019, you can see that 4.5 million people stayed in Airbnb on New Year's Eve. I come from Switzerland. Switzerland has 8 million people. So half the population of Switzerland stayed on just one night. I mean, it's incredible phenomenon, Airbnb. And you could see that the brand took off this performance in terms of stays took off in 2015. Surprise, surprise, they actually did their brand work in terms of the strategy that I was talking about, the mission in 2012. It's written up very nicely in this in an online medium. I recommend everyone have a look at it because it's a number of articles and it from all the brand work. And they went from being basically Air Bed and Breakfast, all the different names they had, Air Bed and Breakfast, Airbnb, which is what they're to belong everywhere. The idea that all in a community, the Airbnb trust Airbnb, trusts the guests trust the host, and because of that, they've created a very powerful brand, and everyone knows the brand very well. This is the sorry, I can't read it. Before you join, you have to click something and you accept the purpose. This is a letter that they basically sent me as a regular user, and it says this: where every city is a village, every block a community, and every kitchen table a conversation. In this world, we can be anything we want. This is the magical world of Airbnb. We will probably never fully realize this vision, but we will die trying. So the point I'm making here is it's very important to sit down, think about product, strategy, branding, and then if you do that over a period of time, you create great value. I'm going to finish now with the Champions League because actually the question was, how do you create value? I went through the different steps. But at a certain point, you've got to do something. So the reason I spoke about Airbnb, because that was a particular workshop that led to the creation of the brand value, which then led to the creation of valuation of the company. In Champions League, it's actually a bit different. There's very brilliant people who were the founders of the concept, who actually invested in it. 1.5 years before the Champions League launched, they got together in this hotel in Lugano and spent 3 weeks thinking and discussing in the morning, relaxing in the afternoon, thinking in the morning, relaxing in the afternoon. And they looked at everything. And then in this place in 1991, the branding strategy was born, the commercial concept was born, the Champions League music was born, the name was born. if you can do everything at the same time, it's a great benefit. So the one lesson from this presentation is think product, strategy, and branding. If you think these three things and you take time to do it properly, then you can create great value. You may not create 4 billion in value like that. It depends on the product, the nature of the opportunity, but you will be successful. I'm going to give the last word now to Lionel Messi. And he said this: the more games you play at UEFA Champions League level, the better player you become. And I think this is a nice way to end this presentation. That is, in essence, how you create brand value. It is a long-term play, and every year you learn something, and every year you improve, and you create value, and then it's a non-stop process. And I can finish this presentation now as I started, to looking forward to the Champions League final in May 2001, where hopefully the Champions League brand will hit new levels, and we'll all enjoy it greatly. It will be the beginning, the end of this pandemic. Thank you very much. That concludes my presentation.